All right, so as a social experiment, if you're married, I need you to watch this movie. And I need you to come back to this comment section and tell me what you were feeling. Because this and Together fit in this little nook of what I call romance horror or unromance horror. Because there's no way you're feeling anything other than unromantic after watching this and Together. This movie is such a cautionary tale to anyone that's not married and is thinking about it. In the same way that Together is. And I'm not married in any way, shape, or form, but watching Together made me feel like I needed a divorce because that movie's heavy with themes of codependency and obsession. And this film traverses those subjects, but then also kind of weaves in and out of others. So the story of this movie goes a little like this. You got a husband and you got a wife. There's a car accident. She suffers a traumatic brain injury that has caused her to develop early dementia. He decides, there's a treatment center. Let's take her there, live in this treatment center, and let's figure this out together. Hopefully, we can bring back, not only have her deal with the physiological elements of that trauma, but the neurological ones, most importantly, because she's having moments and stints of complete and utter forgetfulness. So he takes her to this treatment center, and that's exactly where the movie starts. Where this movie goes is so batshit crazy and so insane. I could compare it to certain films, but I don't want to give anything away because this movie has such a bewildering third act, and not in a bad way. It's just you ever watch a movie and you go, wow, we started what we started with was this little nugget of conflict that was this small, and then by the end of the film we've compacted so many different conflicts together now that the complete and utter size and the overwhelming shadow that is now the new conflict or the evolved conflict just doesn't, it feels in complete contrast. And I mean, that's how you're supposed to do it, right? You're supposed to start out with something small and develop it. But where I thought this movie was going to go based on that little nugget of conflict, I was so fucking off. I was off. I was really off. Now I touched this idea while I was watching the movie, and I was like, that's too crazy. That's too crazy. Nah, no, get it out of here. Get out of here. I was right. The issue was I didn't have confidence in myself because I thought of this concept, and where this third act goes, I genuinely liked. I really did. The word of mouth is that this film is really has really high positive reception. I'm surprised because I feel like that third act would be the sort of that would be the sort of you either hate it or love it, and it would be a 50-50 kind of thing. But it seems like unanimously, for the most part, people really enjoy this movie, which I'm happy with because we need more weird shit. I'm so happy that people are loving it. The reason that this movie works, without spoiling too much, because I don't want to spoil anything that could destroy the experience and the revelation for you if you end up watching it. It is on Shudder. But what works for me is that the first hour of this movie has a look and feel of a 70s sort of vintage, slightly grainy, overbloomed aesthetic. It has elements of Hitchcockian camera work that I also enjoyed. This feels like, at least for the first 75% of the film, feels very Hitchcock. And in terms of the camera work and the paranoia and the tension and the buildup, it feels like a classic. I went to the Hitchcock College of building tension, because it builds not only an intriguing premise and an intriguing question once you see the first thing that is completely fucked, and you're like, Is that her dementia, or is there something else here at play? And that's what the film does really well for the first hour and some change. It really makes you question if we're going down the route of something fucked up is happening in this treatment center, or it's all her, and because we're seeing it through her eyes, we're going to perceive shit as being fucked up, but really she's the problem. I feel the same way about hallucinations, the way I feel about flashbacks. They're almost never fucking necessary, and 9 out of 10 times they're just there for a cheap scare. But here, because the issue is neurological, the way that they went about certain hallucinations within her environment really worked for me to build striking imagery. We're in this like big treatment center that's pretty much like an old, European mansion. And so they play with that. They play with they play with the setting, and it feels very gothic. They play with the shadow. They play with sound design really well. I was like, oh, that just sounds fucking gross or unnatural or weird. Keep doing that. Some of these visuals have slightly uncanny valley elements to it that just make it look unnatural and freakish, so I love that. And while you're dealing with this first to second act, you get a feeling that he's feeling something he's not telling her. And so you start going, well, she has dementia. So maybe the revelation is that because she can't remember a lot of the things before the accident, maybe he's scared she's going to figure something out he's trying to hide. And I'm already, like, that little hook right there got me. Like, that dynamic between her and him was really sweet because they are really loving and they're really funny and they're corny together, and it's like it looks like a dream relationship from the surface. And then you deep dive into the flaws of both of their characters through sporadic flashbacks and audible hallucinations, not flashbacks, sporadic hallucinations and audible ones that she has to fill in these gaps. And you don't really know what to feel for the husband, whether he's good or bad. I will leave that to you to discover. But that element of the story took me on a fucking roller coaster ride the entire time. That was so awesome to be on, because rarely do movies from the very beginning keep me guessing in that manner. At no point was it one of those movies that's like, just get to the revelation. I was like, nah, keep me guessing as long as you can and until it makes sense. Really drag this out in the best way possible. And it is a slow burn, but because it has these moments like Shutter Island or Cure for Wellness, where you have these, there's huge twists at the end of both of these films. But once you know the twist, the context of the first two acts take a different turn, right? This movie works the same way in that there is a revelation towards the end, but throughout the film, throughout the first two acts, you compact on these things with things that just make no fucking sense whatsoever, and not in a bad way, more in a what the fuck is that? If that's that, then can it change? Can it alter the context of the scene that I just saw? And so you're compacting mystery on top of mystery, question upon question, and it constantly keeps the movie altering. The first two acts in spades just fucking work, dude. Class act, Hitchcock 101, perfect. The last act is a moment where I was like, okay, what the fuck is this movie? The way we go about this revelation, and towards the middle of the second act, when it really becomes a thing, it shifts the story into a different kind of horror. There are elements of psychological horror in this, as much as there are elements of body horror in this that really fucking tickle the pickle and wet the whistle. That is so gross. It's not going to work for everybody, so I would have assumed. But again, unanimous word of mouth is this. Everyone likes this movie, so fuck yeah. Once you see the ending, you go, that makes sense. I see this, yes. But it could have been anything else. The movie does a good job of making you guess different things, because all these different horror suspenseful moments could fit into different niches of horror. Her and him have these conversations throughout the movie about longevity in a marriage. Like, basically their version of if I was a worm kind of question. That you know the question. If I was a worm, would you? It's basically that. If I was a vegetable, would you take care of me? If my asshole fell out, would you push it back in and love me? You get a sense that he is very flawed, but he knows how to not demean her, but bring her down to size when she points out certain things. And you get a feeling he's very insecure, but he loves her because she builds him up. And it's very subtle, and there's element of like, toxicity between the two, obviously, but it's not overbearing and they're not like, oh, fuck. It's not like Together. Like, Together, they were basically like, you watch that whole movie and you're like, you guys should not be together, like, at all. Isn't as blunt with that, and it really brings it to you as the audience member to go, well, like, fuck, I'm kind of in that situation. And how much of your partner's flaws are you willing to completely ignore for the sake of longevity and not being alone? And how much of your ignorance is based in love or adaptability? And I think that that entire fucking, that little heart-shaped fucking question is mystery is what really brings the third act together, because then you see what both the directors believe the answer is and towards the end, and it's not a pretty one. So the last act works because I was hinging on what is going to be their point of view by the end of the film. And man, they like fucking, they knocked it out the park with that third act. That third act really worked, and it's weird and it's bloody fun, but it's fucking weird. I can go all day about an Jesus Christ. I can go all day about analyzing. I was going to say analyzing. That's why I kept like sputtering over my words. Analyzing this movie shot by shot, because there is so much there. And maybe I might. Maybe I'll do like a deeper dive or something like that later on, because it's just such a it's a fun movie to break apart, and I think the horror is elevated by its subject matter, as it should be with these like existential unromanced horror films. So definitely watch it if you're in for some weird creepy shit with some existentialism thrown in for good measure. So anyway, that's my review for Honey Bunch. Let me know if you watch it. It's on Shudder. I promise I will review other non-Shudder movies on Netflix and all these other. I just been on a Shudder kick. Come on, man. It's fucking Shudder. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. I'll see you tomorrow. And as always, I'll see you at the movies.